I tried to read it, but I was like, this is a lot of old-timey English. I don't really know what's happening.
So we're going to employ a reading skill.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
Okay, so the basic big idea behind this unit of study is that the U.S. becomes its own thing. How's that going to go? With a weak federal government, because of this original Constitution, what challenges will be presented, and then people will figure out, gee, this original document doesn't work all that well, let's rewrite it, and how that thing looks. And so let's look at some of the challenges that existed early on. I mean, right out of the gates when we're independent, and you can see that there's something called Shays Rebellion here. Hold off on that for a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do is list some problems. Problem number one is, how do you settle border disputes? Does anyone happen to know what state that is supposed to be? Very good, Maryland. That line there is whatever state is to the north of Maryland's claim that everything north of that red line belongs to them. Does anyone happen to know what state is directly north of Maryland? Well, I suppose Connecticut's somewhat north. Pennsylvania. This line here represents the state to Maryland's east, saying, well, this is ours. This line here represents the state to the south, Virginia, saying, well, this is ours. This line here represents the same state, Virginia, saying, this is ours. To whom does Maryland go to solve this conflict? Do they have a war against Virginia? Do Maryland soldiers fight Virginia? Do they play a football game?
Civil War.
Oh, well, the answer is there's nothing there. There's nowhere to go to settle state disputes. That's the big takeaway. The original Articles of Confederation did not have a plan for how do you settle disputes between states. Well, that's a problem. Okay. Problem number two is, and you might think, Mr. Potter, did you draw that? No. That's a photo. People back then looked like cartoons.
Wow.
It's really weird. Plus, when you spoke, actual words came out of your mouth in white garbs. It's weird.
Why did we stop doing that?
After World War II, when things became black and white, because everything during World War II was black and white, like literally, like colors ceased to exist. And then once Woodstock, then color began.
Okay.
Right. So this cartoon here is this stuff. Okay. There's this farmer. His name is Daniel Shea. He fought in the Revolutionary War. The guy's a veteran. He fought and bled for the right of the United States to become a thing. But Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, was imposing taxes upon the people of Massachusetts, which a state has the right to do, right? Hey, by the way, quick, can the federal government at this time issue taxes? No. There's no authority to issue taxes, but states can. Okay? So farmers in Massachusetts are losing their farms because they can't afford the taxes. So what happens? The same thing that happened during the American Revolution. Just like the British taxed the Americans and the Americans said it wasn't fair, so Massachusetts farmers don't like the Massachusetts taxes, and they say, your taxes are not fair. You've simply replaced the British. You are imposing unfair taxes, and so what do? The same thing the Americans did. They rebel, they protest. Led by this fella named Daniel Shea. They actually protested. And violently. Okay? Now, Massachusetts simply went to the United States government and said, hey, there's a rebellion going on within our state. Can you help me? Rest of nation, can you help me? And the answer was, no, we can't. There's no authority. We do not have the authority to help you. There's nothing in the Articles of Confederation that says that Congress can raise an army to help you. So that's a problem. We can certainly raise an army to repel foreign invasion, but this isn't a foreign invasion. This is the problem within your state. Good luck, man. So that's a problem. Okay, I've simply identified 2 problems with the Articles of Confederation. So we gotta fix it. Right? Any questions here? Let's rock. So they decide to have a big old meeting. Every state. This would be the 3rd time where every state sends representatives to a meeting. Is that about right? Maybe 4th time? I don't know. I've lost count. Okay. And why do I have 2 circles? What is that? It's a Venn diagram. You're exactly right. It's a Venn diagram. Okay. So they have this big old meeting. And at this meeting are representatives from large states. And I don't mean large as in many acres. I mean large as in lots of people. And small states. Again, not necessarily physically small, just not very many people live there. Does anyone know the least populated state in the country right now? Wyoming, which is larger than Wisconsin. Right? It's a huge state and no one lives there.
Mr. Potter, have you ever been to Wyoming?
I have many times.
What do you think of it?
Beautiful.
It's very beautiful, yeah, but it's not like,
exist.
like, there's beautiful parts,
It
and there's
exists.
parts that's not so beautiful.
I remember one time driving on this highway and the sign said, now entering some town, population 4. And we drove by the sign and it's like, where's the town? So, I mean, a mile later, we stopped. I think we missed the town. We turned around, my wife and I turned around, and it was like, oh, there's the town. It was a building. That was the town. It was the post office. Okay. The large state people said, hey, this new government that we're going to create, let's call it the Virginia Plan. So the Virginia Plan is the big state plan. The plan that states with lots of people thought this is the way to go. And states with not very many people, they said, nah, let's come up with our own plan. And they called it the New Jersey Plan. So the New Jersey Plan is the little state plan. And I want you to just think about it and see if you can figure it out. One of these plans said we should base our new legislative body based on population. And the other said, no, each state should have equal representation. Can you figure it out when you create this Venn diagram? Take a shot. If you're wrong, big deal. You can scratch it out and put the right answer here. But take a shot which one you think would argue that we should have a legislative body based on population. And you don't have to raise your hand and share. Let's everybody take a shot here. And the other, which one would you think would say, no, let's have equal representation? Just as a reminder, Virginia plan is the big state plan, and New Jersey plan is the little state plan. Can you do it? You can do it. Anyone want to verbalize? Everyone taking a shot? Anyone want to verbalize what I believe to be painfully obvious? Go ahead.
Virginia, based on population. New Jersey, everyone's equal.
Very good. Okay, so exactly right. Now, they also had some things in common. They both said we should have a president. They both said we should be able to have the chief exec. They call it a chief executive. That should be commander of the military. So that's enough for now. Yeah, based on population legislature, equal representation legislature, and they both said we should have a president. Yes, sir.
Mr. Potter, don't we have both those in our current government?
Uh-huh.
And crazy how that works.
I see. You were being sarcastic. Okay. Very good. One of the things that we as Americans truly can pat ourselves on the back for until recently is our ability to compromise. I believe that's an art that has been lost recently. Republicans, Democrats talk at each other instead of with each other. Any of you seen that photograph that was released yesterday of Pelosi pointing at Trump? Right? They're not talking to each other. They're talking at each other. Right? They're calling each other incompetent and third-rate politician and blah, blah, blah. It's, at least at this time, did they argue? Of course they did, but they compromised. Okay? Couple other things that are of note. Number one, who is at this plan? Rich white men. Rich white men attended this convention. Which, if you think about the population of the nation, represents a pretty small minority, right? So think about it. Let's just go with odds. Odds are half the nation is women. So now you're down to 50%. Odds are that about half of that half are not old enough. So now you're at 25%. Odds are that only about 1/4 of the half own property. So now you're at not very many. All right, we'll go with that. 6 to 7%. It's on your test. Not necessarily representative of the nation as a whole. And then the second thing was a guy by the name of Thomas Jefferson, you've met him, said, hey, what about a Bill of Rights? What about a list of things that the government cannot do? And they said, Tom, can you wait a minute? Can you just chill? I mean, you ever thought, probably haven't thought about this, but why aren't the Bill of Rights, the things that are in the Bill of Rights, in the Constitution itself? Why are they the first 10 amendments? Amendments are changes. Why didn't they just do it in the original Constitution? Yes? Yes, I know, but why didn't they put those first 10 changes? It's like if you build a car and then your dad says, how about the tires? Later, Dad! All right, you build the car. Okay, now, Dad. And your dad says, why didn't you just do it when I asked you to? What's with you yelling at me? Right? That's Thomas Jefferson is your dad with the tires. How about the tires? Later, Tom! Okay. Don't worry about all this crap. Okay. Too much writing. The compromises that came into effect for this thing that you and I today call the U.S. Constitution. Let's spend a minute understanding this chart right here. You do not need to draw it. It's fascinating, though. First, look at the blue for both sides. So this building, this blue building, is bigger than this blue building. And this red building is bigger than this red building. But you'll notice that this blue building, that both of them kind of go down. And as a matter of fact, the red grows, becomes larger than the blue. Over here, the blue is bigger than the red. And over here, the red is bigger than the blue. Okay? Notice that. This has everything to do with this thing called the 3/5 compromise. The 3/5 compromise. Anyone know what it is? Yes, you do.
They made slaves count as 3/5 of a person because southern states wanted to use slaves to get more votes in Congress.
You did great. Yeah. Okay. Right. We are going to create a legislature based on population. We're going to agree today. We call it the House of Representatives. Okay. And there are a lot of slaves in the South. And so southern states said, well, we should count those slaves as people. If you count them as people, then you get more representatives. And northern states were like, what? You treat them as slaves. They can't vote, but you want to count them as people? No way. They shouldn't count. And so they compromised. Slaves were 3/5 of a person. So they're kind of a person. And what that did was that raised, this is the takeaway, that raised representation in the House of Representatives from here to here. Slave states gained more representatives. In other words, they had a disproportionate voice in what would happen in the House of Representatives because they pretended to represent slaves. This was a win for the South. We're already creating moments of conflict between North and South. Here we are. On the day we're born, we're already starting to argue. Okay. Just a couple other things. This is a compromise, right? Instead of doing either or, we just did both. We did the 3/5 compromise, and then we said any bill that passes one must pass the other. Which, by the way, does that increase or decrease the likelihood that a bill will pass?
Decrease.
Decrease. Why such distrust in government?
The king was
That's right, because the British form of government was fairly abusive, and so Our forefathers, I don't know if you've ever thought about this before, our forefathers intentionally created a system where it was really difficult to do anything on purpose. You know, Trump arguing with Pelosi, our forefathers would say, yay! They're not getting anything done. Yay! Which means no taxes and no British soldiers in your house and no any of these other abusive laws. Okay, makes sense? The other compromise was, well, what do we do about slavery? What do we do about slavery? And what they did was they punted. Know what I mean? They punted. The year's let's see, what was the year? 1787. This is 1787. And they said, you know what? We won't deal with this for 20 years. 20 years. Anyone know math?
That's a lot of years.
1787 plus 20. 1807. Hey, you can have slaves. We'll talk about this again in 20 years. 1807. Just remember that, because next time we talk about this, it'll be 1807. Okay. Sorry. Oh, there it is. The compromise, Congress could not affect slavery for 20 years. How we doing? Got to get to the good stuff. No need to jot down these notes. This is just sort of something that I want you to think about, and that is this, that how many of you believe the United States is a democracy today? We are a democracy. Raise your hand. We are a democracy. But we're not. We are not a democracy. We are a federal republic. We're a federal republic. We are a nation of states. And that's why Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but is not now president. Because if we were a majority, if we were a true democracy, she would be president because she won the most votes. Democracy means go with the will of the majority. But we don't. We don't go with the will of the majority. We go with the will of the states. And that's why Trump won the right states, and that's why he's president. Okay? We, as a nation, protect the minority, the smaller number, over the wishes of the bigger number. Think about this. All right, picture the ranch. There it is, and you've got 1,000 sheep and 1 shepherd. Now, if that ranch were a true democracy, who would rule?
Sheep.
The sheep. The sheep would rule. They outnumber the shepherd 1,000 to 1. But little insight here: sheep are morons. They're rather stupid. The shepherd is the educated one. Same thing with American democracy. You can't trust the mob. You can't trust people. They don't know what they're doing. They're stupid. They're morons. Instead, let's let the educated, let's let the wise people make the decisions. Okay? Now that list has grown. Who's wise? And so what I have here is examples of the minority getting their way. Like, for example, did you know a federal judge in California just made a ruling a couple days ago that Trump must turn his tax returns over to Congress? That's some guy who lives in California all by himself. Said, Mr. Trump, you have to turn over your taxes. All by himself, one person. Now, that hasn't happened yet. Trump is appealing, right, which he has the right to do. That's an example. Any issue, any ruling by a judge, one judge, can affect national policy. That's an example of protecting the minority from the majority. Right? We don't always go with what most people want. How about the fact that I just talked about this. We had a popular vote, Hillary Clinton would have been president, but we don't. We have the Electoral College, but that's saying it's not the people who rule, it's states who rule. Okay. This is an interesting idea that you and I look at and say, well, yeah, there was this argument that this new Supreme Court that was going to be created should be able to rule on laws, that if laws are constitutional. Now, how many of you think, wow, that's a crazy idea? Nobody, because that's what they've been doing for 200 and whatever years, right? But at the time, it's like, what? What? The Supreme Court will rule the legality of laws? What? Why doesn't Congress do that? And today we're like, well, yeah, of course they do. But back then it was crazy, right? Okay, last slide. Again, you didn't have to take any notes on that one. Oh, I guess that is the last slide. Oh, good. All right, very good. All right, take a breather. 1 minute. Okay, stand, do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups. Okay, we'll resume when the big hand is on the 10. And when the big hand is on the 10, you will find your fellow numbered people. So ones, if you had document 1, ye shall gather ye. 2 shall gather yo. 3 shall gather ye. 4 shall gather yo. 5 shall gather ye. 6s shall gather yo. And 7s over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When the big hand is on the 10, so you got 2 minutes. Hopefully every number is represented.
Why didn't you vote numbers out?
You were done. What happened to you?
Refractured my chin.
Why did you?
That's my choice. I kicked. Oh, okay. What number should I do?
You're gonna tackle this as we
What number should I do? Mr. Potter? Be careful. Ben, you a 5?
Yeah.
Hey.
Are you tired? Looks like we have a 1s. Or where are my 2s? You're 2. You're a 2. Any other 2s besides those? Okay. All right. Good. All right. So back there, 3s are right here. Okay. You 4. That's perfect. 4s. Is there a 4 group? It's 6. Where are my 4s? Nobody in this room is a 4? Crapola. 5s look like they're right here. 6s are right there. And you're 7s. Is that right? What number are you? Okay. I was afraid to say 4. Yeah, or I've got more. Okay. So let's just give it a shot. How many of you found this to be difficult reading? Do you know that I am talking to the best and the brightest? Do you know that the hopes of this school rest upon your shoulders for that thing called ACT? It's up to you people. You're the ones who bring the curve up. One of the key skills is nunchuck skills, but another one is your ability to read text and glean information. And so I'm going to discuss with you right now a strategy, right? You look at this text and it might as well be Chinese. All right, let's try something. Let's try an approach. It is not the approach. It is an approach to how you attack difficult text. Okay, so I'm going to sort of move to certain groups one at a time here, so you'll understand here in a second. So groups 1 and 2. Do you know anything about taxes? Like just generally, what are they for? Okay, you can tax products. Okay. So it's so that states can raise revenue, right? Why would a state want to raise revenue? And pay for products, anything else? Education, very good. Anything else? Public spaces, public parks, yep. Cops, FBI, yeah. Okay. Now, what's the problem? What's wrong with taxes? Why do people say, taxes? But, yeah, it's more money out of your pocket, very good. Right, you might not see the benefit of it, very good. What?
That's nice.
No,
Is it a way for the government to sort of manipulate the game? Getting small.
I
read it.
No, Doug, it wasn't.
Government sometimes manipulates behavior by tax. Right? So government will tax cigarettes so that you say, gee, I don't want to buy cigarettes.
The federal government is power to deal with certain crimes. This power that will use it because of this the act passed by
Argue that
Congress.
it's my body, I can kill myself if I want.
Basically, Thomas Jefferson was saying that
Understand that,
federal
right?
government
Yeah, it's just all.
does not.
Group 3, right? Now I'm talking to this group right here. So,
This power belongs to the states.
what do you think about
States have the right to ignore
me
this act
standing up
passed
here
by
and telling you what I really think of Donald Trump and Barack Obama? Should I be able to criticize presidents?
Yeah.
I, a public school teacher? Think so? Okay. Does anyone have any problem with that? That I should be able to stand up here and you will have to listen to me criticize a president or two and share my opinion. And then later on, I get to grade you. Any problem with that?
I suppose maybe not if you have authority over us.
Okay, so good. We understand that if there's a law in place that sort of forbids criticism of the president, there might be a good intention, but there's also the risk of violating free speech. All right, groups 5 and 6. And 7. 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So let's say, I think I talked about this already, but let's say the United States, by the way, this is real. The United States decides gays should be able to get married, which happened a few years ago. The Supreme Court ruled gay marriage is constitutional. And then Kentucky, yeah, this is true. Kentucky passes a law saying, not us. Not us. Should Kentucky be able to do that?
No.
I'm hearing yeses and I'm hearing no's. Why should Kentucky be able to do that? That's why they should be able to do it. No, why they shouldn't? Okay, you're contradicting federal law. Very good. Any other thoughts there? Why should they be able to? Catherine, I'm gonna pick on you for a second. Remember that law that said that blacks in the back of the bus? Remember that one girl that said, nah? Remember her? She was wrong
But
then.
I'm so used to it.
Why not? She violated a law. How come when a person violates a law for a good reason, you say, yay, go Rosa? But when Kentucky does it, you say, you can't do that.
Yes, they have.
But they thought it was.
Different things.
Okay, there you go. Right? There. All I've done is just sort of triggered your minds. That's all I've done. I went to each group and I said, hey, what about this? What about that? Think about this. Okay, now your minds are triggered. Now this is what I want you to do. I want you to skim the entire article, the part that you had, by reading the first sentence of each paragraph. Okay, just skim it, read the first sentence of each paragraph, and then pause. Go. Not out loud. And don't speed read the first sentence. Read it, drink it, sip it. Read it again if you need to. Read the thing.
When you're done, just give me a thumbs up so I can see who's. Some of you had shorter. Just double checking here. You're skimming it, right? You're not reading from top to bottom. You're just reading the first sentence of each paragraph.
First and the last paragraph, this is like almost the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just kept it this cold.
Does anyone need more time? Which is perfectly okay. I just need to know. Okay, this is what's going to happen now. All right, so far, just to review, we've had a brief discussion about certain issues, right? And then you skimmed it. And now this is what I want you to do. I want you in your group to discuss what you think is going to be read. What's your article about? What do you think? Make a guess. What do you think this is about? What do you think the author is going to say when you read this thing from top to bottom? Okay, just make some predictions in your group. Go.
I think Tim Allen, yo, he should be able.
I'll go. So, since the Constitution did not tell the federal government that it has the power to deal with those specific crimes, that means that, I guess,
President.
the states like get to ignore it because it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said, that like, the Constitution didn't give the federal government power over the states. States can call it unconstitutional. And I said like, states don't have to yield to the federal government under the Constitution.
Did this group have any
States are allowed to
predictions?
self-govern.
What's your prediction about
The federal
the
government, that's it.
ability to criticize? What does your person have to say about?
What do you think?
Be like,
Yeah.
we should be.
Not a fan.
What?
We should be able to limit dangerous speech.
Yeah.
What does this group think? This group right here think about the ability of a state to ignore a federal law. Should a state be able to do that? Yes is the conclusion of this group.
Tim Allen's like,
Did you come up with any why?
Because the federal government thinks that it's stated in the Constitution, and the state
The state
should
should be able to roast them.
Ignore it.
The state should be able to roast them. Okay.
And then these two groups, you sort of have the same thing. Any conclusion, should a state be able to qualify, ignore a
You
federal
wanna
law?
do it, you do it. You don't have to, doesn't have to be made right now.
Did you, no, I know you don't know, but can you make any predictions? Why?
You already paid him.
There it is, champion.
You wanna drop out?
Think of that. Think of a nation where anybody can ignore any law they want. That's a land called Chaosville. Okay, very good. All right. So just to review, first we energized your minds by me teasing what you might be reading about, and then you skimmed it, and then you made some predictions about what you think this is going to be about. Okay, and now we're going to spend some time sipping this bad boy. But good news for you. Take your entire document and subdivide it by the number of people that are in your group. You read this paragraph, you read that paragraph, and I want you to sip the paragraph that you're responsible for. Read it and then write down your thoughts, your conclusions. Highlight, underline, circle. What is your paragraph about?
I'll do the second.
I'll do the third one.
Okay, mark it up.
Are you telling me that
So,
is black?
Is that the only one that's left?
One,
Two of you can read the same paragraph. That's fine.
Wait, were you using on?
Now the back.
Alright, so I'm thinking if one person
there's
should
four
just take
paragraphs.
this.
If you count the third one,
So we split up this middle one. All
Who
of
wants to do
them.
first?
We split up the end. Actually, no, I thought it. One person do the intro, one. Bobby, you do
Yeah.
that. No, but you do the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just read.
You
I
read the
can do
intro.
one or two.
Jenna, you're my favorite.
I'll do.
I guess I'll read the first half with the big one.
Which one do you you
Last
take?
one.
Hopefully by now you have divided and now you are reading, and let's use this term from English, close reading.
5 and 4.
Reading every word. And by the way, here's another little strategy. After you read a sentence, stop. Stop. Think about what you just read. If you don't understand it, read it again. Maybe jot down an idea. Here's what he means. This is going to take some time. I'm going to give you time to really do a close reading where you understand it backwards and front. Well, have you studied up on the new product? Well, do you know it backwards and front? Basically. I'll check back with you in about 5 minutes.
And then
Oh, I get what Tim Allen's saying here.
this program is controlled and then we can.
Do you want it? I'm gonna walk it over. Nah, I got it. Good. That's what I like to hear.
It's Thursday though. Almost
Not
there, man.
Friday, yeah.
Almost there, man.
Do you agree that like the second to the last hour of work worse than all?
I think so.
It's like you're almost there and then.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a struggle.
Get the last hours of
I just try not to think about it.
I vividly remember the first time I got into it. It was 1989. I feel to my friend's church. I'll be like,
Second paragraph,
I
you want it.
was budding sophisticated.
And the last
To the
one,
burger.
last one, exhibit.
Unlike burgers, it's
Roman, American, and countries,
there's no junior version of children.
the other one, the war one.
And the credits to write a passage, which I devoured.
I mean, it doesn't make sense unless you read the next full paragraph.
Or by the barbecue.
So I don't know why you included it.
I knew that.
There's only 4 paragraphs.
Four paragraphs.
Yeah, there's 4
Yeah.
because this one is continued on to the next page.
Oh.
Oh.
So you guys have-
No, okay,
Yeah, it's
who
like-
wants to do number 1?
Back going down.
I'll just say what.
Wait, one.
I'll just do them.
1 is the
One's this,
first
right?
paragraph.
Yeah. I did the fourth.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Wow. 24 years.
Wait, the federal government's like the state, right?
What?
Federal government's like the state.
Federal government's the whole thing.
Okay.
When it talks about general government, does that talk about like federal?
Yeah,
or-
general just means
what is it? Okay.
Today, my oldest boy was in the hands.
Okay.
I realized that the fear of being despite my wife.
When, now again, some of you might be ready to do this and some of you might not. When all of your group members have read your paragraph and think you got it, and now share with each other. Share with each other what each paragraph means within the group. Okay?
All
right, what do we figure out about that?
I mean,
You're ready.
So when it says general government, that means federal, right?
Federal, yep.
So then when it's saying they constituted a general government, is it talking about the state?
States created a federal government that was supposed to do specific things. Limited things, just the things listed. Only those things.
Okay.
Anything else, states should do. Make sense?
Okay, yep.
Awesome.
Alright, so this guy's basically like saying, oh man, these people with their
Yeah, one second.
stuff, that's not doing. Should we just take that? No.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, did you get kind of the same thing out of the second half of that? Okay, what you got out of the first half of that one? Oh my gosh. Okay. The second half of this, he's like, the public and the press are gonna be like, President man, you know, all that. That's it.
Okay.
Any follow-up notes?
So whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah, you guys.
Okay, so the first one, basically, it says that the Alien and the Sedition Acts give power to the federal government.
Oh, Bob.
And I think Kentucky argued that
Oh.
was for an agreement among the states. So because it's not an agreement among the states, the federal government had the right to exercise power, not specifically delegated.
Big hands on the two. We're gonna bring it together.
Figure out what's up with Tim Allen. Now we need to figure out what is Obama's last name.
You think it's about
Basically.
Yes, he thinks Harris is last name.
Yes, it's Obamacare.
Yes.
There's evidence to suggest that's right.
That they give federal
The question is,
government
does he
power
care?
over states. States can call it constitution of the federal government. And the federal government can only be in charge of certain things,
I'll read it later.
but the states can do that.
So yeah, that's basically what the third one is about. It's just that the Constitution never gave the federal government the right to deal with those crimes. And like in the Constitution, it said that any power not delegated to the federal government belongs to the states.
Yeah.
That up.
So
The fourth one kind of said that too. The Kentucky argued that, that Congress couldn't deal with punishment outside of the
What
Constitution.
happened?
Is that right?
Back is
They had no authority to punish crimes other than specifically named in the Constitution. I don't know.
Okay, 30 seconds. Don't worry about being wrong.
they're all.
Are you drinking laundry detergent?
Honestly,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so let me give you the next set of instructions here, and then we'll start today. We'll see how it goes. But when I call on your group, you should be able to say, okay, the central issue was, it's either going to be taxes, the Sedition Act, or can states nullify federal laws? Okay, there's your issue. Then you're going to say the position of the speaker was yay or nay, right? So the issue was this, the position was that, and then most importantly, why? Why? What's great about taxes? What's wrong with taxes? Why should we be able to limit free speech? Why shouldn't we, says no one. Why should states be able to nullify?
Yeah.
Why should states be able to nullify? Why shouldn't they be able to nullify? And actually tell us, hey, look at this line. He says, blah, 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 blah. That means blah, 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 blah. Okay, do you need another minute to sort of finalize what you're going to say? Okay. In fact, why don't we just do this? Let's just be ready to talk about this tomorrow. Okay? Tomorrow. Which means you have about 5 minutes. What's the issue? What's the position of the person in the issue? Why? And by the way, multiple reasons exist. multiple reasons exist.
So the main idea is basically that the federal government doesn't.
Oh, God, I forgot one other thing.
And the states can be on their own.
The part in your document that expresses the argument would be the document evidence. Everything else is possibly historical evidence. So does your person point to a specific example that demonstrates the argument being made? Point that out to us as well. Let's use these documents for document evidence and historical evidence. Okay. For tomorrow.
Wait, so we just have to come up with reasons why, is that right? Okay.
And was there any specific example referred to? There's an obvious specific example, and that was the Sedition Act. Okay, your group is going to argue that Kentucky should be able to. I can't remember. Should be able to nullify it. The specific example is the Sedition Act. That Kentucky said that's a dumb law. We're going to nullify it. So that's your specific example. Sedition Act.
For this paragraph, I was really confused with this part. Like, are those laws that were given to the
We're no longer making it requirement.
Let's see. So I'm reading Congress the power to punish treason. Yep. Counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. In other words, Congress gets the right to make money, not states. Piracies, felonies. These are all things the federal government should be able to do, not states. But only those things. Everything else should be states.
Okay. And Congress is the federal.
Congress is the federal government. You got it. Your hand in there? Or are you just doing yoga?
I'm kind of sore.
What'd you do?
You can bring a little snacks,
I
but
pulled out,
you break is
and then we were benching a little bit, and then we got sore there too.
you get a break at the English and the math section. Yeah, no, we started at 8:10 and we got out at 1:15.
Gracie ever show up?
I brought like a little snacks.
Did Addie Monty ever show up?
Honestly, like what I'm probably gonna do next week, I'm just gonna sit in the testing room. Like everyone else like goes up to the halls. Like just talks. Yeah. But then you have to go back like